Evening falls at the edge of the Sahara. Wind drives wispy clouds. And then a small miracle occurs. Clouds release water without any rain. Peter Trautwein invented these cloud catchers.
I've done so many projects in my life and had so much luck in my life. I thought to myself, with my knowledge, what can I give back?
How did I find this story? Initially, I wanted to try a special beer on Gran Canaria. It's brewed with water from cloud catchers.
It's made from water droplets that have traveled almost halfway around the world.
That's where I first heard about Peter Trautwein. Now, after 4 years away, he's back here, at the edge of the Sahara, to see whether his nets have delivered on his promise to supply 16 villages with drinking water. I'm Sebastian Kisters. I report for Germany's public broadcaster ARD from Northwest Africa and Spain. This year's drought was extreme. It's the first time I've reported on people fighting over water and on cities like Barcelona that simply wouldn't make it without desalination plants. I reported on how prices skyrocket when the harvest fails, and I reported on beer made from cloud water. That was the starting point for this story, a journey that takes me first to Morocco, to the edge of the Sahara. Drinking water captured from clouds. Could this be a viable solution in times of climate change? Good news amidst all the bad? We stop in a village in the south of Morocco. Peter Trautwein brought cloud catchers here several years ago. Now he wants to see what they've changed. Locals tell us that some years it only really rains here once or twice, the whole year. But now Peter's nets are on the top of the mountain and down below this cistern.
Here the cloud water is collected.
Just a little.
Yes, the water's already run down to the villages. 200 cubic meters of water can be held here. The cistern is divided into two parts. At the front there's space for sediment, so there's a kind of natural filter. Then it goes into the second cistern, and it runs down to the villages.
Peter Trautwein is an industrial designer who created tennis rackets and ski boots. Then came his 50th birthday.
I've spent my life designing products, and now I'd like to design a product where the focus is primarily on people. Creating a project with people, for people, is a completely different experience. Working for free, giving something without getting anything in return, is also an experience. So it is definitely the project I have benefited the most from in my life, where I have given a lot, but also received a lot in terms of appreciation.
But this is also made in Morocco?
Locals like Munir are now running the project. Peter Trautwein financed the construction with various grants from foundations and other programs.
We worked for 2 years to check different meshes: flat fabric, inox, and spacer fabric.
Yes.
And we changed every 2 months. and sent the data to the Technical University of Munich. And after 2 years, we decided to continue with the spacer fabric because
for 1 year it's experimental.
No, 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. Zwei Dinge brauche ich,
I need two things to collect water from fog. One is an air current. Ideally, it should be between 5 and 10 meters per second. And I need water droplets in the fog that are 20 to 40 micrometers in size. That's roughly the cross-section of a hair.
Ungefähr dem Querschnitt von einem Haar.
So now we wait for clouds, for fog, tiny droplets that get caught in the nets. Further west, on the Atlantic coast, it looks as if something might be coming towards the nets. Clouds are gathering. We travel further west for now to Tenerife, one of the Canary Islands. A climatologist here has been researching cloud catchers for a good 30 years. She looks at how and where water can be extracted from clouds without a drop of rain falling. As in Morocco, the lack of precipitation is a fact of life on Tenerife. Victoria Marthol looks to nature for clues. She also worked with Peter Trautwein's project in Morocco. Victoria searches for mosses and lichens. She finds traces on bushes and stones. What signs indicate there could be tiny water droplets in the air?
There are some of these signs here. There, for example.
And these lichens are also found in Morocco?
Yes, that's right. And in Morocco, there's also this. Look, that's exactly what we have in Morocco. A different kind of lichen. It grows where clouds meet the stone, where tiny droplets collect. They're very dry at the moment.
Really dry.
But normally, they show perfectly where cloud catchers are worthwhile.
And she wants to show me more.
Look at that tree. A very clear sign. These lichens show exactly which direction moisture is coming from. Another important thing for us is the altitude above sea level. You don't get cloud water below 600 meters, only at higher altitudes. And the shape of the terrain is key too. Wind and water droplets must be able to flow and be in motion. If anything blocks them, you can't catch any droplets.
No tienes esa renovación del aire, entonces no es bueno para colectar grandes cantidades. Tiene que ser un sitio con algo de viento.
They started here 30 years ago with very simple nets.
The technology Peter uses in Morocco is more robust. His nets have an extra layer.
Looks more like two.
Yes.
These nets here are simpler, but they get the job done, Victoria says. They catch cloud water. The reservoir is quite full.
Some time ago, there wasn't a single tree here. It's all been reforested.
Everything reforested with water from clouds?
Yes. We even pointed out to hikers with signs.
Lucky that this knowledge exists, I think, because reforestation with cloud water is something Tenerife could really use. Recently, there was a fire at the other end of the island, And what a fire! An area some 7 times the size of Frankfurt Airport was reduced to ashes. I have to think of Irena while I'm up here too. I met her at a demonstration in the spring. That was in March on the mainland, south of Madrid, in Toledo. People had taken to the streets because they didn't want to give up their water. I asked Irena what she was afraid of.
Our environment will get worse again. There will probably be more forest fires again. They started earlier than ever before. More will come. It will be another sad year. People keep saying that further water restrictions are to be expected. That affects us. But it also affects all of nature. We are losing quality of life.
In Toledo, the biggest concern was about the longest river in Spain, the Tagus. It should live, says this poster. And no to the canal, stop the mafia. For a living river and not a canal. What people are so upset about is a canal that pumps river water from here to the south. It's like Frankfurt on the Main having to send its water to supply Munich. In Spain, the river Tagus is tapped to pump its water over 300 kilometers to the south, to the driest region in Spain. The water is then used to irrigate fruit and vegetables, which later end up in German supermarkets. The people from the center of Spain say no more. Here, too, it is now far too dry. The sign around Irena's neck reads, "Less irrigation, more life." Water shortages, even in spring. I wonder, could cloud catchers help? Back on the edge of the desert in Morocco, evening has fallen. The clouds are here. They move through the nets. And then water, drop by drop, without any rain. Peter Trautwein seems happy with his nets. The collecting troughs fill up with cloud water. On average, 37,000 liters of water end up in the cistern when clouds and fog pass through the nets for a whole night. Water shortages are an everyday occurrence for people here in southwestern Morocco, and it's getting worse, say experts. As in so many places, around 2 billion people around the world have no safe access to drinking water. What could the cloud catchers change? Is the water reaching families in villages? And how does it affect their lives? Here we are talking about 1,300 people living in an extremely rain-poor region. But a severe lack of precipitation is no longer limited to North Africa. Large parts of Spain could become deserts. The clock is ticking here in Valladolid. Many trees are dying because they can no longer cope with the increasing drought. New trees must be planted quickly.
If there are no regeneration processes here and the climate develops as it seems to be doing, many more trees will die. And we could end up with a steppe-like landscape with just a few trees left. Here in Valladolid, there are many continental dunes. That means sand that is moved by the wind. These dunes are fortified by the bush. If there were no trees, these sand dunes would migrate and take over parts of agricultural land or areas near villages.
Sandy hills that could take on a life of their own, a horror scenario for the people here. Desertification, that's what they want to prevent in Valladolid, with new trees. And I wonder, what about cloud catchers? Could they help? I show the ecologists pictures from my trips to Morocco and Tenerife. Yes, they say, it would be nice to get water that way, to help the trees grow a bit bigger. They would have considered it, they say, except for one problem. Conditions here are very different than on Tenerife.
We've seen less and less fog in recent years and decades.
How many days?
Oh, this year there were 2 or 3 foggy days. Last year there were 5 or 6. Years ago, when we were kids, there were entire months of fog, all of November.
So they just have to rely on the rain. Rain that failed to materialize this spring, like in so many places in Spain. So they have to hope that the sand will stay where it is, held in place by the new trees.
We need rain, and it mustn't get too hot in summer. That's perhaps the most critical part of reforestation in these very, very dry areas.
It won't be an easy year for the little trees with a huge task, preventing tons of sand and inland dune from a destructive migration. What isn't an option for people in Valladolid is currently part of an experiment in Gran Canaria. Reforestation using cloud water. The trade winds regularly drive clouds onto the island's mountain slopes, so it seems to be a good place to catch water droplets. Some are still visible in the morning, just after the clouds have dispersed, and the sun has risen on Gran Canaria. This wind brings hope to the dry island, hope and beer. Does this taste good?
Yes.
The beer is called Sea Clouds. This was my introduction to cloud water.
The fog was caught on the mountains here. Water droplets that have traveled almost halfway around the world.
A year ago now. Back then, I interviewed Canary Islands ecologist Eugenio Reyes. Of course, this was about more than just beer, namely the urgent need to develop new water resources on Gran Canaria. The island is a popular travel destination in winter. Eugenio was born here in the mountains.
I used to work here as a farmer, but there's no more water, and when it does rain, it washes away the fertile soil.
Eugenio took me to a reservoir on the island. A vast emptiness. We met people from the water department. Is this normal here?
This is not normal. No. The lake should be full every 5 to 6 years. But due to climate change, that hasn't happened for 10 years. We no longer have enough rain here. The situation is worrying.
We now require 16% of our electricity on the island to get water, electricity for pumps and desalination plants.
16%. So much electricity just to get water. It all scares Eugenio.
Either we act or we're heading for a water collapse. What we're experiencing is not just a climate collapse in the sense that the seas are rising, but here in these areas of the planet, around the 28th parallel, the entire subtropical zone is seriously heading towards desertification.
Now they're betting on an experiment in the north of the island. Cloudwater is used for reforestation on Gran Canaria. A forest fire has raged here, but now there is hope. In a year, they have collected tens of thousands of liters of water on this mountain using cloud catchers. A quick test. The reservoirs are full. They use the water to grow 3,000 young trees. Biologist Francisco Gonzalez shows me. You use the water from up there for this?
Sure, everything we caught, no problem.
Later, some of the little trees get their own little cloud catchers. Probes in the ground show whether the experiment is successful. How does it work?
We compare moisture in the soil, and there are different values. Water is trapped in here, through these cages with nets. We measure a higher humidity inside than outside the nets.
That works?
Yes, it works.
How simple. Small cages catch cloud water for the young plants. Ideally, the north of the island should remain green. No more soil washing into the sea. And water to brew beer. This is what engineer Ricardo Gil catches. Also in the north of Gran Canaria, not far from the reforestation experiment. He developed all the boxes himself and believes in their potential. Do these cloud catchers actually work more or less all over the world?
Everywhere we have wind and fog. Look, Chile in the Atacama Desert, Peru on the coast, Colombia, Panama, Mexico, Ecuador. In many places around the world, also on the Iberian Peninsula, in France, Germany, and Great Britain.
Here on Gran Canaria, Ricardo extracts thousands of liters of water in a year. This is purified and sold as drinking water. Cloud water. It's a luxury item.
We sell the water in France and Italy, and France sends it to Qatar. And this is also available in gourmet stores and restaurants in the Canary Islands.
And how much does one cost?
The one here, about €2. And the one sold in France is €9.50.
How much?
€9.50.
Wow.
Yes, they are expensive. That's the best premium water.
Luxury water, or beer from clouds. That's a long way off in Morocco. Here, people are happy to have water at all. Fatima is cooking couscous today. Daughter Hasna washes the vegetables.
This is beautiful. What can I say? We turn on the tap and there's water, without suffering, without having to make a terrible effort, without having to think about where to get the donkey or the containers to carry the water.
While the food is cooking, Munir wants to show us where the people used to fetch water. The well, on the edge of the village.
You had to have time, at least 3 or 4 hours, because it was clear that there would be a queue to get to the water. There were always lots of people here, but now we have the cloud catchers. People have water, they have taps, and they have a lot of time to do other things.
For example, school?
For example, the girls go to school.
Now you can turn on the tap and pour as much water as you want. Before, we were only allowed to use a little. We had to fetch water 3 to 4 times a day. And when we ran out, we had to think about where to get it. That's a big difference to now.
But to ensure that the cloud water is not wasted, it costs money. Families buy prepaid cards, just like for phones. Then the number of liters they have paid for are released to their homes. The people from the villages manage this along with the organization that is now overseeing the project. Munir is part of this organization. During my visit here, I realized that water's importance becomes clear when it's missing. But you see it even more when water arrives in a place where it used to be scarce. Brahim's pride and joy? A washing machine.
Water changes everything. It's like saying, today is Eid, not just Saturday or Sunday. Today is Eid. It's actually only once a year, but for us it feels like it's all the time now.
With that, he disappears into the kitchen. He wants to show me what his wife and daughter are preparing.
Meat. Chicken.
Chicken with couscous. And with it, freshly washed vegetables. The family is quite proud of their new life. In their tradition, only the head of the family and his guests eat together. The cloud catcher team and us. Peter Trautwein, the man who brought the water to the villages, connects with everyone. But Morocco is not his only focus. Right now, he's getting calls from arid regions around the world.
Well, I've noticed that the number of inquiries has increased significantly this year. It's always different. This is perhaps also related to periods of drought. At the moment, most inquiries are coming from Somalia, Oman, and Namibia, but also from Europe. Northern Italy, for example, is severely affected by drought. I'm even talking to the Water Management Authority in Piedmont. Portugal is very badly affected. That's a perennial issue. I have the feeling that the inquiries are increasing from year to year, and we get them every day.
An idea prompted by his 50th birthday has now become a small company. He named it Cloudfisher. On Tenerife, climate researcher Victoria Marsol is testing which nets are most effective for extracting droplets from passing clouds. So far, the winner is Peter Trautwein's mesh from Morocco.
It's three-dimensional with lots of fibers, and the droplets stick to these threads, then slowly drip down. With this other one, there is a greater distance between the fibers, so fewer droplets get caught, and the wind carries them away more easily. In addition, the nets in Morocco have a second fabric made of hard plastic fibers behind them. This prevents the mesh from inflating when the wind blows. This makes it easier for the water to make its way into the collection channel.
What motivates you?
I could say that I'm crazy, but that's not true. The question is, what role does the sea of clouds play in the island's water balance? We only measure rain, but we don't have any values for the moisture that the fog brings. And this water is very important for the island.
Water from clouds without any rain. Victoria believes this research is only just beginning, but time is running out.
Tourism consumes a lot of water, and 80% is used by agriculture. Huge consumers include areas where tropical fruit is grown, bananas, for example, or avocados, mangoes. They consume so much water. Tenerife, like all the Canary Islands, lives off water from desalination plants.
There are more than 800 in the whole of Spain.
There are more than 200 on the Canary Islands alone.
Back to the Spanish mainland. Unless alternative water sources can be tapped or a massive amount of water conserved, Spain will depend on desalination plants. Where there is a lack of rain, these plants are the most common method of obtaining drinking water. One of the largest plants in the country, south of Murcia on the mainland. Water from the sea is purified and salt is removed, using a great deal of energy.
This plant produces 180,000 cubic meters of water a day, or 180 million liters.
Wow.
That's enough for how many people a day?
If this water was only used for human needs, then 1 million people could live on it every day.
That's a lot.
Here in the pink pipes, water that still needs to be treated flows. Blue pipes mean desalinated water flows here.
And where are we here?
This is the heart of the desalination plant. There are membranes in these white pipes, and under pressure, we produce desalinated water that's of drinking water quality.
Salud.
Tastes normal.
Good?
Good. Normal. What percentage of the water here is used for agriculture?
95% of the water is for the farmers.
95%?
95%.
More or less everything.
Not everywhere, but in this plant, yes.
What do they do with it? It's practically a desert here.
Tomatoes are grown here, cucumbers, lettuce, poinsettias.
Poinsettias?
Yes, lots of them.
For Germany?
Possibly.
You'll end up desalinating water here for Germany.
Indirectly, you can say that.
Tens of millions of liters of water a day so that poinsettias can grow in this bone-dry part of Spain. Some farmers say, this is crazy, we're not going to do it anymore, like almond grower Miguel. He wants to show me how land could be farmed more sustainably with little rain.
Agriculture today is very intensive. Areas are cultivated several times a year and plowed deeply. That's not good for storing water in the soil. We have to ensure that they can regenerate. That soil becomes like a sponge and stores water. One way we do this is by using a lot of organic material, a kind of mulch, like here. This ensures that water remains in the soil. It also changes the structure of the soil. The first 20 or 30 centimeters of the soil used to be like sand on the beach, very permeable. Now we have a completely different, much better structure, roots and plant material, that stores rainwater.
It is the beginning of a possible change to the endless barren almond plantations. Miguel is convinced that this is the future, and the best way to save both the soil and agriculture in Spain's dry south. He is currently sowing herbs between his trees. And that's not all. There's lavender here. Why?
There are several reasons. You can make lavender oil or distillate from it, and it draws insects, which we need here for pollination. It's also about biodiversity and about preventing erosion and to break up this monoculture.
Then Miguel tells me that they have thought about using cloud catchers.
Down here in this area, there's often fog in the morning. From September to February, March, a few hours of fog.
So cloud catchers might work here.
Well, it is an option to use this humidity for some projects. For example, reforestation in areas where there is little water, or in areas where pumping water in would be very expensive. Yes, it is a possibility.
That's just what they're doing in Gran Canaria. Reforestation with cloud water. 9 months after our visit, we are back. And the first thing we see is a very different kind of cloud catcher, inspired by conifers.
We are just imitating nature, and this needle form is very effective. We imitate nature in the way it collects water, and then direct it towards the ground and collect it.
How much do you get out of it in a year?
In a collection system like this, 570 liters per square meter per year.
Al año.
Sí.
Wow.
And with these cloud catcher boxes, the biologists collect even more water for reforestation.
Paco, si hay captadores aquí.
But Paco, if water is caught here, isn't it missing elsewhere?
Absolutely not. We only catch what would naturally get caught, on bushes, for example. Otherwise, it would evaporate.
And now I want to see what has become of the young trees with their own little cloud catchers. Is it still working?
Perfectly, actually. The trapped water droplets work. Look at how different the sizes of the trees are. The same species, planted at the same time, in the same place.
de la misma especie y plantados en el mismo momento.
Paco Gonzalez has another appointment on the Pico de las Nieves, Gran Canaria's highest mountain. With the military, we are allowed to join him.
You also use these cloud catchers now. How much tap water do you save? A third?
It's a pilot project. We now have 12 of these boxes to start with. To cover 100% of our water needs up here, we would need 36.
We use it in the buildings, not yet as drinking water, but to cook food and in the bathroom.
They save energy because less water has to be pumped up. The United Nations says we need new ideas in the fight against water shortages, like cloud catchers.
FogNet technology, which is actually only just getting started, can become much more efficient in the future. And it will. I'm convinced of that.
Munir has done further research into where cloud catchers could be worthwhile.
Look, that mountain over there. We experimented there. We were able to collect an average of 45 litres of water per square metre of net per day. At the old site, it's 23. We're doubling the yield.
Catching drops of water from clouds may not be a solution for the whole world, but it can help save entire landscapes. And for some, it can change lives.